Welcome back to the news today. That was a hot debate. This is One on One. One of the claims by the far right in Israel for the justification of Israeli sovereignty in the West Bank is that there is no occupation because the entity called the Palestinian People and State is a made-up notion. And when Israel occupied these territories in 1967, they were occupied by Jordan and Gaza by Egypt, a situation in which Palestinians residents had no citizenship and no legal stance. Tonight on One, we will try to understand and to confront this stance with Professor Abraham Sion, former Deputy State Attorney for Israel. Good evening. Thank you very much.
Good evening.
For coming. So let me understand, no Palestinians, no Palestinian country, or no occupied territories?
Well, according to international law, Palestine on two sides of the Jordan were promised to the Jewish people. That happened in 1917 when the Balfour Declaration was made, and then later on when the British mandate was confirmed in the League of Nations. At that time, the Jews were a minority in Palestine, and yet they were given the whole area, the area from two sides of the Jordan. Only later on, Britain abrogated the promise that it made, and it tore Jordan out of Palestine and left it under its administration until 1947, when it gave it to a prince from Saudi Arabia, Prince Abdullah, and he was made king, and Palestine was left with only the west part. Now, there was no Palestinian state. There were no Palestinian people. The Palestinians were Jews and Arabs alike. Many Jews were Palestinians. They were born in Palestine. They had a Palestinian citizenship. They had a Palestinian passport. Some of my friends who were born before 1948 still have birth certificates showing that they are Palestinians. So there was no Palestinian people, which you can say they were Palestinian Arabs as they were Palestinian Jews, but there was no Palestinian people as such.
But there was a Palestinian society if they held a certificate of a Palestinian state.
Well, I don't know whether you can call it a society. There were many societies, not just one society, because the Arab society was alone, and then the Christian society was alone, and the Jewish society was alone. But all in all, it was under British mandate. And the mandate was given to the British government for one reason only: to establish a homeland, a nation, land for the Jewish people in Palestine.
So what happened down the road? What happened? The Jewish accepted the Jewish state and Israel, and the Arabs didn't accept the new state?
Well, I would say that it was made in the way of the salami. At the beginning, there was a partition where Jordan was torn out of Palestine. And then in November 1947, there was another partition, which the Jews accepted. The Jewish leadership accepted, but the Arab leadership did not. And soon after that, Arab armies invaded the Jewish state. And what today is called the Nakba, really, is that the Arabs did not manage to achieve the purpose, to annihilate the Jewish state. That's the Nakba.
Or maybe they couldn't find their place in the Jewish state.
No, they were not interested in finding their place in the Jewish state. They were interested in having Palestine as an Arab state, not as a Jewish
But
state.
before that, both Arabs and Jews were living together on the same land.
They were not living together, they were living on the same land.
Under the same mandate.
Don't forget that there were many pogroms against Jewish people in 1929, the massacre in Hebron, and then you had the uprising in 1936, and then further on in 1944.
But you had the Haganah, and you had the Lehi, and you had the underground. It goes to vice versa, you know. It goes to both societies. I want to take you maybe to one step further. Okay, the Arabs didn't accept the Palestinian state, the Jewish state. They wanted a Palestinian state. They wanted an Arab state. Today, you cannot argue with the feeling of 2 million people who feel that they are Palestinians. The reality today.
2 billion people where?
2 million people.
Where?
In the West Bank, in the Gaza Strip. How can you today start negotiating with people when you deny the fact that you don't accept what they're feeling? You don't accept the identity that they believe that they have for the last 60 years.
It is not that we do not accept their feeling. We are doing everything to bolster their feelings, to make them happier, to make them better. Now, I'll tell you one thing. There was never a Palestinian state. For 19 years, Jordan occupied Judea and Samaria, which is called the West Bank. Egypt occupied Gaza. None of them offered the Palestinian people a state. It was only Israel, for the first time in history, that offered the Arabs a state. Now, the Arabs said, we want a state, but we want our refugees not to come to our state. We want them to come to your state. Now, can you imagine, you give a people a state, and they say, we want our refugees to go to your state, not to our state.
So we are talking about a society that is caught in the middle. The society that already has a flag, has an army, has institutes, has a president, basically, and a society that feels that it is Palestinian. A society, what do you want to call it? People? The people of Judea and Samaria, the people of Israel, the people of the two-state solution. What do you want to call them? These are existing people in an existing land, in an existing reality that they need to pass through checkpoints every day. They need to see soldiers doing operations in their own cities. And this is the reality. What do you do today with the reality?
Let me tell you one thing. There is a reality. Somebody who wanted to commit murder, and he was not successful. And he was imprisoned for life. Now, we speak about this person who is imprisoned for life, and we say, look how unhappy he is. He hasn't got freedom. He has to work hard. He is in a very difficult situation. His health is bad. And we forget why those restrictions were made. These restrictions were not made before. Let me tell you one thing. I served in Gaza for 17 years. I could walk the streets of Gaza without having any gun or ammunition or anything, and nobody even came close to me or touched me. And you see what's happening today. So giving the Palestinians more freedom, giving them a state, giving them independence, was tantamount to making the biggest mistake that could be done.
So you're going back to what? To the occupation
There's
solution?
no occupation.
To leave them?
You cannot occupy
So what do you do with all these people? You're not
you,
giving me a solution. What do you do with all these people?
You cannot. We don't have to do anything with them.
Just to leave them
No,
here.
we give them freedom. We give them to deal with their own things. We don't have to do anything with them.
But just
they
to
are
control
people,
them by marionettes?
Sorry?
Like to control them, just to keep
Oh
controlling them?
no, who is controlling them? Nobody's controlling them. They have their own schools, they have their own teaching, they have their own incitement against the Jews, they have their own cartoons, they have their own television and everything. They are doing fine. You don't have to do anything with them. All you have to do, all we wanted to do really, is to give them independence. We asked for one thing. In fact, the Palestinians had nothing. We offered them a state. We made Arafat a president. We made Arafat a president. He was in Tunisia. Arafat would never have been able to land in Israel under no circumstances. It is we who invited him. It is we who made them a president. He was not a president. He was an arch-terrorist before. And we did all this for one reason only one reason, to have peace and to bring down fighting and
I have to finish this conversation. Unfortunately, we have only 10 minutes, but if you're saying maybe Israel is the one to blame for giving all this, thank you very much for coming to our...
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, and we're going out. Tomorrow we'll be here at the same place.